professional militaries, professional intelligence services are critical for stability and security of states. If you look at terrorism and our response to it, we have gotten where we have to a point that you find the country secured 2+ years without experiencing major terrorist attacks or such threats. Not that they haven't been there, the attempts, so many of them have been foiled, including recently. But it is because of adopting that multi-agency approach, intelligence-led operations that have enabled us to get where we are. We are not saying we are out of the woods. Security does not just belong to those of us that are practitioners in the security sector. It boils down to each and every individual citizen, both from the public and the private sector, to properly secure the country. When we look at the national security, the overall goal is about survival of the state in the international system, meaning that Kenya is a functional state existing within the international system and contributing to global security, global prosperity, and all the good things that go with that. As an institution, the KDF, I have to ensure that this especially the issue of ethnic intolerance, does not find its way into the military. And over the years, and our forefathers ensured this, that there are various mechanisms that have been put in place to ensure that there will be no dominance of any community. There will be a fair representation of each and every community, and therefore reflect the face of Kenya. So people wonder, kwa nini jeshi kazi inafanyika vizuri, nini. Some of the things is that there is tolerance. We understand we are Kenyans first. And this is something that Kenyans will need to come to terms with, that unless we love our country first, we will soon have no country, and there's no spare. Not the way you carry a spare wheel in the boot of your car. Hakuna. So we can't have anarchy in the country, first and foremost. So even as people exercise their rights, it should be within limits and within bounds, such that we cannot allow us to exercise our rights to the extent of tearing apart the country. So this issue of how politics goes and all that, and by the way, the military, one of the core values is that we are apolitical. We don't support any political side. We defend the Constitution and the government of the day, duly elected by the people. So wakati watu wanaamua kwamba tumechoka na hii serikali na mulichagua wenyewe, alafu mnasema must go, that must go must be done according to the Constitution. Si ni kweli? Yeah, so that's why people question kwa nini military inakuwa deployed. We have a responsibility. We took an oath to defend the Constitution, to defend the Republic. And that's why it is necessary that the security institutions are professional, and the professionalism will come through academic exploits, through such institutions. So we have a responsibility. The other thing, other than political intolerance, the huge unemployment problem that is there, the youth can bulge is both an opportunity but can also be a threat if not well handled. And I'm sure that's why government is busy putting in policies, trying to see how we can continue to harness and create opportunities for employment. This again cannot be possible without a secure environment in the country.
It's worth noting that public discussions on intelligence are not without precedence. Around the world, intelligence agencies have engaged in open dialogues to emphasize their role in national development, security, and diplomacy. And today, the National Intelligence Service takes a bold step in this shift towards transparency and public engagement in security matters. Today's lecture on Kenya's evolving national security landscape is therefore a reflection of that shift, an opportunity to bridge the gap between intelligence agencies and the citizens we serve, fostering a shared responsibility of keeping our nation safe. Through this lecture, the citizens of this great nation are invited to gain insight into a realm that has historically been cloaked in secrecy. Intelligence, by its nature, operates in the shadows. It thrives on discretion and anonymity, handling information that is rarely discussed openly. Yet, at its core, intelligence exists to safeguard Kenya's national security, protect the fabric of our society, and ensure the safety of our people. In an era where threats are dynamic, borderless, and increasingly unconventional, security is no longer the sole domain of government agencies. These threats target our communities, businesses, and way of life, making an informed and engaged public not just beneficial, but essential to national security. It is not easy to be able to enumerate the various threats that Kenya faces. However, we must remember that intelligence work, by its very nature, cannot always be loud. It cannot always explain itself. And yet, in a democratic state, silence must never be mistaken for impunity. We understand that in this age of instant information and digital noise, people demand to know. They want details, they want timelines, they want names. The NIS now operates at the intersection of multi-domains that has a holistic view of the state's well-being. The rapidly evolving global landscape, evidenced by the shift towards inward-looking policies among Western nations, has led to a situation I call risks with a high degree of randomness. This trend, particularly against the backdrop of Africa becoming the epicenter of terrorism, threatens to undermine support that has historically bolstered security efforts. Our national security landscape is influenced by global dynamics, including a changing world order, multilateralism, exponential growth in disruptive technologies, resurgence of nationalism, and protectionist policies, and climate-induced threats. Kenya is supporting South Sudan conflict resolution mechanism, cognizant of risks of Islamic extremism, such as IS, Islamic State, and Al-Qaeda, that already harbor networks in neighboring Sudan, using the country as a safe haven and launching pads for terrorist activities, even in Kenya. In Sudan, the ongoing civil war, Sudan North, amid faltering peace efforts, raises the specter for a resurgence of Islamic extremism, constrained economic opportunities, as well as risk entangling neighboring countries of South Sudan, Chad, Egypt, and Ethiopia into the conflict. It is against this backdrop that Kenya is supporting efforts to address the political stalemate in Sudan and South Sudan, including providing platforms that could allow the warring parties to mediate on their differences. We have to take responsibility to ensure that our neighbors are at peace. Kenya's domestic environment is faced with a myriad of challenges, especially as a result of its linkages with global dynamics. Despite the prevailing pressures, Kenya's economy has remained stable in an increasing fragile environment. The Kenyan shilling has held steady against both regional and global currencies, supported by fuel price stabilization, increased investment in agriculture, and strategic market policies that safeguard economic sustainability. We must also recognize the immense potential of AI and digital advancements. AI innovations can transform healthcare, boost economic opportunities, and enhance national security. This raises a critical question: how should Kenya and the continent counter cyber threats in this evolving landscape and exploit the opportunities presented by emerging technologies? Africa must take charge of its digital future. We must move beyond roles such as content moderation, and instead we need to focus on AI research, development, and strategic partnerships that empower the continent. And eventually, it will also boost our national security and our stand in the region and the continent. By coming together as a region, we can ensure that AI serves our interests rather than undermines them. Notably, I am pleased to highlight the significant support made by the NIS in technology. Intellectual property theft presents yet another security threat that undermines the country's innovation capabilities and economic advantage. Since independence, Kenyan institutions have only secured 55 patents. Since independence, 55 patents. The gaps result in Kenyan development solutions being patented by external actors and commercialized abroad and later sold back to Kenya. IP theft, however, is not only limited to external actors, but also within our country, where big corporations have exploited young and unsuspecting innovators. In this regard, strengthening collaboration between research-intensive universities such as NIRU and the private sector represented here today is crucial for generating innovative solutions that can be patented, commercialized, and scaled up. We must unite in our efforts to secure education for every child across our nation, for it is not just a matter of learning, it is a matter of security and stability. When you have no teachers in the north, in Turkana, in Samburu, in northeastern, just know that that uneducated child will probably become a cattle rustler or a terrorist, because without the requisite knowledge, they will not have the opportunity that you have to make a choice. But let's steer away from ethnicity and tribal divisions, because that really goes to the very core of our national security, which can only be guaranteed if we are cohesive as Kenya. Without cohesion, there is no national security. We also need to repair our broken political landscape to create a resilient state and nation. As a nation, we must pivot on an uncompromising commitment to our democratic polity. This will ensure the indefinite survival of our state and nation. Intelligence plays a key role in this national imperative. Citizens must find belonging in this polity. Their voices must be heard so that we can truly own the state. And while the future may be unpredictable, it is a future we must diligently prepare for. As an anchor state in the region, Kenya has an essential role to play in fostering regional growth, stability, and development. As we strive towards these goals, we must remain eternally vigilant and proactive, ensuring that even in the uncertain future, we are never taken by surprise. The National Intelligence Service will steadfastly continue to uphold this commitment.
The fact that I'm being here is in itself evidence of the evolution of Kenya's national security landscape. It would be inconceivable that an Attorney General, defined as legal governance person, would be in attendance at an institution dealing with intelligence services. It would even be unheard of that the President of the Law Society of Kenya would be speaking at an institution of intelligence services. Since our independence, Kenya has journeyed from a narrow perspective of security, organized as a secret service that is faceless, to a broader conception of human security, delivered in an open, participatory, accountable manner, governed by the rule of law, and that is answerable to the sovereign, the people, characterized by civilian oversight today. As a country, we have moved from a narrow conception of security as a regime protection, where security was a tool of colonial subjugation, to a complex framework that grapples with contemporary challenges, particularly human security. As our nation state nurtured, matured as a democracy, and in light of growing awareness, including campaigns to expand human rights, we began to broaden the notion of security, to look at guaranteeing a range of civic political rights of people to a whole gamut of development rights guaranteed in our 2010 Constitution. This expansion of our freedoms, the demands on the responsibility of our government, saw a very comprehensive reorganization of our society in order to respond to the human and development security of our people. The demands for participation as an expression of the people's sovereignty spoke to the structure of our political leadership, including the bicameral national parliament, as well as county assemblies. This was also reflected in other arms of government, the executive and the judiciary, which were expanded exponentially. Further, the provision of rights that guarantee dignity reflects the aspiration to provide access to critical services and to enable them enjoy public safety and actualization of their full potential. Thus, the right to education, health, housing, and other social amenities are provided by our basic law as a basis for public safety and security of Kenyans. Importantly, this expanded and deepened democratic credentials that were critical in enabling Kenya address the changing security terrain. We have evolved a robust legal policy and execution framework for addressing challenges that threatens our domestic character as a people and as a country. To do this, we have developed laws and operational mechanisms that are within the democratic aspirations of our country. This has been given expression through the development of institutions, including special courts and competencies in order to safeguard our people and our country. It is therefore my submission that our laws are consistent with the Constitution 2010. If there is a problem, it would be the implementation and the people given the responsibility to implement the laws. But the laws as they are constitutional and they respond to a democratic thirst.